Good afternoon, everyone. There you go, there you go. First of all, we are very happy to be here presenting and hopefully giving you information that you need and can be very useful. My esteemed colleague, Jerry Krasinski here, and I'm Angelo Leslie. So without further ado, we'll get into our presentation, and hopefully you'll find this very informative and valuable. And at the end, we're going to have some Q&A, and then hopefully we can address some of the issues. But let me give you just a quick rundown on who I am again. I'm Angelo Leslie. I'm the Director of Wealth Management Services here in Michigan for Gries Financial Partners. And we'll be presenting this session basically on a voluntary basis. And got to say this for the disclosure point, he has no relevant financial or non-financial relationships to disclose. And my partner, Jared, is a senior client advisor for Gries Financial Partners and is presenting, again, this session for a conference on a voluntary basis and has no relevant financial or non-financial relationships to disclose. So that's the legalities that we have to say. So let me tell you a little bit about Gries Financial Partners. We provide the highest level of conflict-free investments. We counsel high net worth individuals and into an institutional audience. And I'm trying to get this clicker to work so you can see this. So bear with me for a second. There we go. Okay. As an independent fee-only registered advisor, Gries Financial Partners has been managing clients' assets globally with integrity and objectivity and service intensely since 1978, which is 44 years. And in 2020, GFP became part of the 4100 Group team of companies, providing the firm with a platform to further invest in technology, people, and geographic growth that allows us to stay ahead of the curve in serving our clients. So let's get really into what our financial planning process is for the general client, and hopefully working with special need members as well as and their families. First of all, we establish the relationships with our clients and potential clients. We collect the information. That discovery process is so important, so we need to get that information so we can know who you are, what your family needs are, and so we can help work out the plan. Then we analyze our client's financial status. We identify and we're being aware of the programs being used or available to special needs individuals. So we're going to do some identification and really analyze what's the best option for you and your family. And then we put together and develop that financial plan using strategies and knowledges for special needs individuals, because this is so important. The financial piece of this is so important because we know with special needs individuals, you have so much to deal with, so we're trying to make sure that we put the financial information out there, so that's one less thing you won't be stressing out about. And then what we try to do is actually implement that plan, and then after that plan is implemented, we want to review on a regular basis if that plan is working on a timeline that makes sense for the family as well. So collaborating with professionals is extremely important because we are not the end-all be-all. We like to try to make sure we're facilitating the plan and making sure we're meeting the family's needs. But there's other professionals that you really have to account for. Like you want an accountant or CPA because there's financial information that's involved with that. You want to get a nice estate planner or estate attorney because that's extremely important. Insurance agents, philanthropy advisors, an investment advisor, because in these special needs and special needs trusts, you may want to invest that money for the long term so you can help the individual family member prepare for later on in life. Also, you want to consult with the doctors, the social workers, the special needs person, again, the planning attorney, and then, of course, the family members and other caregivers that's involved in this entire entire process. So there's a multiple different people that's involved in working with a special needs members, because this is not something that's short term, it continues throughout that lifespan. So you want to have a collaboration of individuals working on behalf and for the best benefit of the special needs member in your family. So, special needs planning. Here are some of the key areas that you really want to focus on. You want to focus on your family assets and planning. You want to coordinate and caregiving planning. Those are the two major things from family assets and planning. You also, is there an opportunity for employer benefits, life, health, and welfare, and other retirement plans that you can get from your employer? So you want to investigate that as well, along with the financial planning that we can help with. The government benefits that's available to people with special needs situations. The means-tested benefits, the SSI and the Medicaid, and the entitlements that you are due with the SSS, DI, and Medicare. So that's extremely important. So we want to understand what benefits that you get from that. Then, of course, the legal planning, the wills, the special needs trust, the third-party trust, the first-party trust, the pool trust. So all of these things are extremely important, that you gather key areas in making sure the financial plan is put together. So as I mentioned, 4 specific areas: the family assets and planning, the employer benefits, the government benefits, and of course the legal planning. Now my colleague Jared will pick up from here and continue.
So I'm very happy that I'm not just standing here and I get to speak. Thank you guys for having me. Change the slide. So the key planning phases. We have 4 major planning phases. That's going to be the birth, the adolescence, parents' retirement, and parents' death. There's not much planning to be done at birth, except for, you have your Medicaid. It's really Medicaid waivers, which would be the habilitation supports waiver and the child waiver. And then you have your Social Security survivorship benefits potentially. What really comes into play is on a state-by-state basis, when is somebody deemed to be an adult? When is somebody deemed to be standing on their own 2 feet, so to speak? Because prior to that age, that your son or your daughter's assets would be commingled with the families, by which most likely it's going to disqualify you from those means-tested advantages that my colleague Angelo mentioned previously. So in the state of Michigan, that age is 18 years old. This is really when a lot of the planning does come into play, because now you start to title assets differently. You start to move around certain pieces in order to be able to obtain that SSI, that supplemental security income. You then have your Medicaid and your Medicare, your Social Security survivorship benefits, your SSDI insurance, and then we come to the parent's retirement or your guardian's retirement. So normally in financial planning techniques, we're always going to be encouraging our clients to wait until their full retirement age to get their benefits. Sometimes we'll even encourage to push that to the latest possible age of 70 years old so that you can get a maximum benefit. When it comes to your Social Security disability insurance, your SSDI, if both of the parents are working, you may want to consider one of them taking their Social Security benefits at 62 years old. Because although you're taking your Social Security benefits early, your child would get 50% of your full retirement benefits had you waited to 66 or 67. So that is something that we would consider. Obviously, every case will be on a subjective level, but if you are able to do that, that is something that we would encourage, because you're able to get those benefits for a couple of years earlier than you would have if you would have waited to your full retirement age. You have the child disability benefit and your Medicare, and then on the parent's death, you would have your Social Security survivorship benefits, which would be 75% of the total benefits that you were getting. We're going to go into a lot of what I just said, because the last thing I want from this audience is that I'm just saying a bunch of words and there are a lot of acronyms being thrown out there. I want to make sure that there's a level of understanding that at least when we leave this expo, when we leave this exhibit, you guys know what stage you're at in this planning process. And so with the professionals you work with or professionals you want to seek, you can at least know that would be a starting point to the conversation. So the government benefits. When we talk about government benefits, we're going to be looking at the means tested and the entitlements. So under supplemental security income and Medicaid, that would be considered means tested. Social Security, disability insurance, and Medicare, that would be entitlements. I tend to separate these. You want to look at them as income benefits and healthcare, medical and healthcare benefits. So the supplemental security income and the Social Security disability insurance, those are income benefits. And supplemental security income, Social Security disability income are the largest federal programs designed to provide income assistance for your loved one with special needs or disabilities. While these programs share many similarities, they also have differences. So let's start first with the supplemental security income. The supplemental security income. SSI is a needs-based, means-based cash benefit for those with special needs or disabilities that have little to no income. It can be used to meet your loved one's basic needs for food, clothing, and shelter. Although SSI payments alone may not significantly impact your loved one's future, eligibility typically comes with Medicaid access and may transition into group housing services and vocational training. The SSI eligibility, your loved one must have a disability and be able to engage in substantial gainful activity, and they must meet the income requirements and have less than $2,000 in assets. So obviously that's a very low threshold, and that's where a lot of that the planning techniques do come into play. Another thing that I want to mention here is the SSI pays for food, clothing, and shelter, your basic needs. If you have a son or a daughter that are living with you, right then and there, you're losing a third of that benefit because that shelter is already being taken care of. A cool planning technique in that scenario would be to set up some sort of rent structure. It doesn't have to be for a lot, but it has to show that you can collect that extra third of the SSI. Social Security disability insurance, the SSDI. So the Social Security disability insurance pays a monthly benefit to individuals with special needs. Children or dependents who qualify for SSDI receive payments based on their earnings of the parent along with other eligibility requirements. After your loved one with special needs has received SSDI for 2 years, they may be eligible for Medicare, a substantial benefit. Social Security disability insurance benefits are payable for life. SSDI eligibility for dependents. A dependent who has special need or disability before age 22 can collect SSDI based on the caregiver's work record if the caregiver has worked enough to collect Social Security. That's 6 quarters of work. If the caregiver is already receiving Social Security benefits, or if the caregiver receiving benefits is deceased. Another important financial tidbit here is that your disability insurance at work or a personal policy may coordinate with the SSDI, and that's something that we would definitely take a look at in our planning. Medicaid. So now we're transitioning to the medical and healthcare benefits. These are very important, but they're different than the income benefits substantially. So Medicaid is administered by the state. Medicaid is a federally funded assistance program for low-income individuals, those with special needs, as well as people over 65 and on Medicare. This needs-based assistance program provides vital health coverages for people with special needs, such as physician service payments, outpatient and inpatient hospital services, medical, dental, and surgical services, nursing facility services for those 21 years and older, family planning services, and many more. When you think about Medicaid, we've heard multiple stories that it's a real headache to go through the paperwork, but it can be such a powerful tool to always be able to qualify for something like Medicaid or SSI, especially if you're using them together. There was a client that we had at our firm, and essentially he had set aside a lump sum of funds to pay for his child's needs, child care, and it was a very affluent client. He went through these funds in a couple of years and came back to us wanting to set aside another set of funds. And we're going to be talking about this further in the presentation, but through proper planning, we were able to set up special needs trusts And we were able to classify his assets in a way that he was able to qualify for Medicaid. And in that way, he reduced his costs substantially. Medicare. So Medicare is a federal health insurance program for people with disabilities, those 65 and older, as well as those with end-stage renal disease. Since Medicare is a federal program, the rules are the same regardless of your state. In order to be eligible for Medicare, you have to meet the following criteria. If you're 65 years or older, under 65 and receive SSI for more than 24 months, which I had mentioned previously, or under 65 with end-stage renal disease. So although navigating government benefits can be complex, planning ahead is one of the first steps towards pursuing the quality of life you envision for your loved one with special needs. It's important to consider each government benefit, how it can impact your loved one's life, optimum timing, and apply those benefits. Before we get into the special needs trusts, I think this is a good period. We just went over the medical and healthcare benefits, and we also went over the income benefits. Those two are, there are things that you can do on your own, but with the right guidance, you can actually plan in a very strategic way to take full advantage of these benefits if you're not already. The different types of special needs trusts. So there are three types of trusts. There's a first-party trust, a third-party trust, and a pooled trust. Special needs trusts are irrevocable trusts that are set up to benefit individuals with disabilities. Special needs trusts can protect a disabled person's benefits and allow them to maintain their eligibility for government benefits, like Medicaid and SSI. Like all trusts, a special needs trust must have a settlor, the person who puts asset into the trust, a trustee, the person who manages the assets in this trust, and a beneficiary, the person that receives benefit from the trust. The first-party trust. In certain situations, a first-party trust may be the only option. Examples of when a trust would need to be in a first party include a disabled person is awarded money in a lawsuit, or when a disabled person has received an inheritance. Essentially, the assets are already in the disabled person's name. Medicaid does not count assets in a first-party trust for two reasons. First, the property in the trust can only be used for the sole benefit of the beneficiary with disabilities. And the second, when the beneficiary dies, the trustee may reimburse Medicaid in an amount equal to the cost of the Medicaid benefits the beneficiary received. Therefore, these trusts are sometimes called sole benefit or Medicaid payback trusts. So in this slide, you can see the assets were received in the name of the beneficiary, essentially. And then they set up a first-party trust, which would then it would pay out the assets to the beneficiary, and at death, the remainder would go to the family members, but they would have to pay that medical payback, which doesn't make it the most appealing trust for a special needs trust. The third-party trust. Third-party trusts are sometimes called discretionary trusts because the trustee has sole and absolute discretion in deciding whether to make distributions. This is important because if the beneficiary can demand anything from the trust, Medicaid will count the assets in the trust against the beneficiary. A beneficiary cannot unilaterally get to the money if the trustee has sole and absolute discretion. A standalone third-party trust is a current document that can be funded and used at the time it is signed. A testamentary third-party trust is written into the settlor's will, but will not be funded until the death of the settlor. Standalone trusts are preferred because it may be years before a testamentary trust can be used for the beneficiary. It is generally better to have money available to the beneficiary now. The settlor can also write a will that pours his or her estate into the existing standalone trust. Then you may have the best of both worlds. Anybody but the beneficiary can be the settlor or the trustee of a third-party trust, and anybody except the beneficiary can contribute to a third-party trust. Before we get to the trustees and I pass it over to my colleague Angelo, again, we are not special needs planning attorneys. We're not estate planning attorneys. What we do, and Angelo had mentioned this, we try to quarterback in a fiduciary way for our clients. So before meeting with these attorneys and setting up these trusts and getting involved with these benefits and making sure you qualify for all of these, we're the guys behind the scene making sure that the pieces are in place of the puzzle for when you have those meetings with an attorney to get everything in order properly. But we don't write any documents in-house. Angela?
Thanks, Jared. Now, what Jared just brought out was extremely important with the various trusts. First party, third party, the pool trust, the whole special needs trust. It's extremely important and valuable information that he just spoke about. But what's as equally as valuable is understanding who to choose to be running that trust for you. So let's go over a little bit of what the responsibilities are. And you have to think very closely when you make your choice is, do these people or the individuals that's handling your trust can fulfill these responsibilities? Being a trustee, and I can't emphasize this enough, especially for a special needs member, being a trustee is a full-time job, okay? So when you make your decisions, understand that. And anybody that's accepting that responsibility has to realize it's a full-time job. So what are the responsibilities? They have to carry out the terms of the trust. They have a fiduciary duty to the beneficiary. So what does that mean, fiduciary? That's a word thrown around a lot in the financial environment. Fiduciary means to act in the best interest of the beneficiary at all times. So choosing the trustee of that trust has to make sure, and you're confident, that they're acting in the best interest of the beneficiary or that special needs member. They have the duty and responsibility to act and invest prudently, okay? That means some trusts can have some assets or fundings in it, so they have to act prudently. You would not want anyone being a trustee of your account that has no financial or investment savvy or experience. They are to act and invest prudently. They also have a duty to maintain the records accurately and appropriately. So that person needs to be a detailed individual. They also have a duty to collect and protect trust property, like homes or whatever property assets they have. So they have that responsibility to collect and protect that trust property as well. And they have a duty to report to the beneficiaries. Nothing in secret, nothing held out more than they should or elapsed time. They have the duty to report to the beneficiaries. All right, so now that we know what the responsibilities of the trustees are, and we understand that it's a full-time job, who do you choose to be the trustee? Now, it can be a family member. A lot of people will go with family members, because those are the people you know, those are the people you trust. It can be a family member. It can be a friend, a trusted friend. It can be an attorney. Or it could be another financial institution that's acting as a fiduciary to the beneficiary. So some of the things you want to think about as you choose these individuals is, are they available? Is their location accessible to you? Will they be in it for the long haul? Will they have longevity? You don't want to pick a trustee that in 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, they're out and says, I can't handle this. So make sure you think about the longevity of it. Here's another part too, because this happens a lot in families, especially close-knit families. Does the trustee have impartiality? Is he going to be impartial when he's making him or her making his decisions? Again, as I spoke earlier, do they have an attention to detail? So they have to be very detailed. And do they have any experience in being a trustee? No one wants a trustee handling a special needs member or large assets or any assets for that matter, and they don't have any experience. It's as though you went to the doctor for heart surgery, and this is first time performing heart surgery. You'll be a little uneasy about that. So again, you want to make sure your trustee has the experience. And of course, you want to make sure you understand what the fees are. Because some institutions, even a friend or family has a right to request fees from doing that full-time job as a trustee. So you want to get that squared away as well. So those things are very important. Remember, choosing is as important as that trust itself. Make sure that the individuals or the institutions that's going to be your trustee, that you think about it and you're making sure you're coming to a solid decision on who this person or institution will be. So Jared, you can take over the actual accounts.
Oh, I love this section. So the ABLE accounts, right? ABLE accounts, it's MIABLE accounts because it's specific to Michigan. But ABLE accounts is a tax advantage investment account available to eligible individuals with disabilities. ABLE accounts are made possible by the federal Achieving a Better Life Experience ABLE Act. It's a great act. And MIABLE accounts allow individuals with the onset of disability prior to the age of 26 to save and invest money. We're going to go through the next couple of slides where we see not only how compounding interest is so powerful, how this tool is so powerful for families, how it's being used, and how you guys can use it. Eligible individuals can invest money without losing eligibility for certain public benefit programs like Medicaid or SSI, up to $100,000. So that also is very important. We spoke about earlier about that SSI limit of $2,000 of assets. This does not count as those assets. So you're able to stow away money, put away money that's being invested that doesn't disqualify you from the programs that you plan so hard in advance to achieve. Earnings in a MIABLE account are not subject to federal income tax if the funds are spent on qualified disability expenses. And the qualified disability expenses include basic living expenses, housing, transportation, assistive technology, education, health, and wellness. They're not, these QDEs, although they have categories, they're meant to be more vague because it's about being able to spend this money, have it grow tax deferred. The earnings that are used on these expenses, as long as it fits within the category, can be such a powerful tool for families. And actually, there was a survey done on what people have been using ABLE accounts for. So if you don't mind, I'll just read a couple of these. To save for a home, to start a business, and or to pay for higher education was one of them. To cover the gap between medical insurance pays and the actual cost of medications. To pay for a new car or to modify a vehicle to be accessible. To save for a goal of starting a family and the costs that go along with it, such as moving to a different home and additional medical expenses due to pregnancy. To save for emergencies, have a sense of financial security, to work towards financial independence, and to avoid having to ask for money for daily wants and needs such as groceries and bills, to pay for recreation, sporting events, clothing, dining out, and other items not covered by government benefits that increase quality of life. I think those are very important things that I just listed out, that every family should use this as a tool. MIABLE account benefits allow individuals with disabilities to save and invest up to $16,000 annually without affecting eligibility for certain public benefit programs. If employed, an additional amount of earned wages that can be deposited into MIABLE accounts is $12,060. This would be a combined annual contribution of $28,000 approximately. There's a maximum lifetime contribution limit in the state of Michigan of $500,000. Just a very high amount. It also is a tax deductible when you're contributing. Earnings and savings grow tax-free. No federal or state taxes owed on withdrawals used to pay for the QDEs. Michigan state income taxpayers can claim up to $5,000 deductible for single filers, $10,000 for joint. They're encouraging people to use this act, to use these accounts. A U-gift would be just a way for someone to gift funds to someone else's ABLE account. So it doesn't necessarily have to come from parents' funds. It could come from relatives or friends, also in no way causing any sort of tax consequence. Eligibility, someone who has a disability onset or occurred prior to the age of 26, that's very important, has been living with their disability for at least a year, expects their disability to last at least a year. How does someone qualify? They're eligible for SSI or SSDI, have a condition listed on the SSA list of compassionate allowance conditions, self-certified their diagnosis. They leave this open-ended for a reason. Again, I can't stress how important these ABLE accounts are. This is really cool. So the MIABLE card, it allows, years ago I worked at a camp called HASC, which is a camp for special needs children. And something that I learned there was that even if I gave the ability to achieve a task as opposed to doing it for this child with disabilities, there was an extra level of gratification and just a success mindset. And I think that the ABLE accounts, although they are very powerful financial tools, you have to bring it down to a level that the consumer can understand. So if you have a MIABLE card, you're able to load up this card with any amount of money that's in the ABLE account that can be spent on these QDEs, but that your loved one can actually spend themselves and feel like they have that independence there. Enrolling for a MIABLE account is very simple. You go onto the website, the signing online is free, and the minimum amount that you have to put in just to open the account is $25. Obviously, you have that $16,000 that you could contribute per year, and you have that $5,000 that could be a tax deductible, $10,000 for a joint family or joint filing. But even to start with $50, this is a way to slowly build up. These assets are going to be invested. They're going to compound. It's going to be compounded growth. And when the time comes, those QDEs, those qualified expenses, are again, they're left to be vague so that you can use these ABLE accounts. The costs are very low, and the more people that contribute to these ABLE accounts, the lower the costs will be. These are fees for just essentially holding the accounts. I'll pass it to my colleague Angelo, and I'll allow him to show you the power of compounding interest.
So as Jared mentioned, there is power to compound interest and the time horizon. This slide is very important. So just assuming that you take $16,000 invested into a MIABLE account. And as you read down here at the bottom, it says, John invested $16,000 into the ABLE account for 16 years for his disabled son and daughter. At age 40, John's child could have an income of roughly $25,000 a year. But more importantly here, I want you to take a look at these charts. And I don't know if you can actually read the numbers that's on top of these bars, but let me just explain what this is. Over a 25-year period, the original of $16,000 invested at a conservative 6% growth over for 16 years. Starting off at $16,000 for 16 years, that number at the last bar here is $410,754. So as you can see, with the proper, prudent investment advice and strategy, how much an account can grow at a modest 6% growth rate that you will have in a 16-year period. Now, if we go to the next one chart where it talks about a $28,060 investment that you can do with the spouse and with addition to the spouse. And the example brings out Jill worked and put in $28,060 into her account at age 36. By the time she was age 50, just 14 years later, Jill can spend roughly $60,000 every year and still leave her heirs over $1 million. Or at age 50, Jill can spend up to $70,000 every year and live off that until she is over 80 years old. So again, if you take that $28,000 and we use the same 6% growth for 25 years, that number is at over $1.1 million. So you can see the advantage.
Sorry, Angela. The slide hasn't changed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's
I'm
no
sorry.
problem.
I'm going. So that slide there, thanks. You can see that slide, and that's what I was just talking about, how those numbers can accumulate. So it's extremely important, again, going back to that trustee or investing properly in that trust and investing those dollars can be the value of the compound interest and growth rate. So there is a value to proper investing into a trust like that. So if we go to the next slide here, titling the beneficiaries. When it's possible, at all times, I would suggest and recommend that assets should be titled in the trust name, not the beneficiary's name. The trust should be the trust should be the beneficiary of the life insurance, retirement accounts, and transfer of death accounts. So any assets that can become assets should be titled in the name of the trust. Gifts should go to the trust, not the beneficiary. Now, you may be asking why. The beneficiary is going to get all of this at some point, right? That's why it's called the beneficiary. That's the definition. Why put it to the name of the trust? Because there's something called asset protection. It protects your assets from suit or any other impossible things or possible things that could occur. It's a planning process vehicle that we use to benefit the special needs member or the beneficiary of the trust to make sure those assets are protected throughout the lifespan of the individual. So special needs planning is part of the financial planning process. There's a bigger picture of the planning process, but special needs, you have a special needs member, that should be part of the financial planning process. So it's just like if you were building a house and the kitchen is part of the whole structure of the house, you design that kitchen differently than you would design the entire house or other rooms. So special needs is part of the entire planning process. Also, you need to know that government programs are available. SSA.gov is a good resource to find out what those government programs are that can help bring benefits to each family. So if you're jotting down any notes, SSA.gov is a good resource to find out what available programs are in place for you, your special needs member, and the family. Again, I'll reiterate this, the proper use of trust can protect assets and other beneficiaries. It's really important to title those things in the trust. I'll give you a perfect example. If someone comes to my home, slips and falls, they sue me, and the house is in my name, and I lose the suit, I can lose my house. If the house is titled in the trust name, they can sue me, they can't take the house because my house is titled to the trust and it's asset protected. You see the point here? How important something as simple as this can go in the long run, right? It's like the old saying, no one ever wants to pay for insurance until you have an insurance claim. So the same thing applies here. That asset is protected, okay? Proper titling is so important. So any assets, as a recommendation or a course of caution, is to make sure your assets are properly titled to your trust. And then again, finally, reach out to professionals for help, and that depends on how complex the situations can be. But again, you have individuals and firms like us, you have other people, your attorneys, CPAs, whomever. Reach out to the professional. And I'll use this example, simple. If I had hip surgery a couple of years ago, I wouldn't have did the hip surgery myself, right? I'm not an orthopedist, I don't know anything about that. So I reached out to the proper help to have hip replacement surgeries. So the same thing applies here. This can be a very complicated frustrating process because we understand you're dealing with a lot of things. So at least from the financial piece of it, the planning piece of it, make sure you reach out to highly qualified professionals to help with the process, because it just makes it easier to do. So again, these are some of the resources. If you can jot down, I believe everybody can get a copy of this. This is being recorded. So these are resources, and I won't, for time constraints, I won't read everything here, but these are some valuable resources you can go to and look up information. And of course, we're accessible to you as well, so you can also get our information, and anyone from our firm will be very, very happy to assist in helping you plan out the process. So that is our presentation. Hopefully it was valuable. You learned something from it, and it was informative. At this point, myself and Jared will take any questions that you have, and hopefully we can answer it. If we can't, we will research it and get back to you. In the back there.
So going back to the MIABLE account and the $16,000 a year for 16 years, how exactly does that happen when you have a maximum of $100,000 you can have in it?
Maximum contribution of $100,000, right? So what was it? It was 16 years being shown?
Yeah.
16 years at $16,000 each year, so isn't that contributing over $100,000?
No, that's the gross. That's what she's thinking she's putting in 16 each year. See?
Well, if you go back to that slide, or even like you had $28,000, so you really could only put that in for less than 4 years.
Correct, lifetime contribution. Correct. Did you get the answer there?
The 100,000 cap was for that's when you start to get.
It becomes income then?
That is a means test issue.
So that's when it becomes income.
Correct, because you're trying to avoid disqualifying yourself from
Right.
the SSI.
So what happened? Okay.
So that was the 100,000.
So at a certain point over there, whatever year you're going to get to at 100,000, how does that become income? What percentage of that adds to your $2,000 that you have to maintain?
I don't understand the question. What
So
becomes
in
income?
my eyes,
Right.
the MIABLE account is to avoid having over $2,000 in the person's name. Okay? So you can, so if my son got a gift of $500, he could put, or $2,000, he could put that in the MIABLE account, and that wouldn't mess up his SSI.
Right.
If he had over $100,000 in his SSI account,
His
how
SSI account?
no, sorry, in his
No problem.
MIABLE account,
Okay.
how does that affect his $2,000 limit?
It could start affecting the $2,000 limit that he's receiving. It's going to be on a case-by-case basis by a certain percentage. But, wait, are you asking something, Irene?
No, I'm saying, so you're saying your son, once he passed that 100,000 threshold, is that going to affect the SSI?
Yeah.
Is that going to disqualify him from the SSI?
Yes, at a certain point, but then once you go back, you're suspended but not terminated. So if he takes out, let's say, he's at 100,000, right? He takes out 2,000 for, I don't know, a car.
So these slides are a little deceiving in the fact that you.
No, we're right, but I thought you were talking about like.
Right, but if you have an SSI account, you have to.
But it's not showing the decrease in the SSI on this slide. It's not taking into account the SSI from this one slide.
Right.
The other slides before were saying that once you hit your 100,000, your SSI can be affected. But here it's not showing SSI and ABLE accounts. It's just showing the maximum for ABLE accounts.
Okay.
Does that answer?
It's basically not for a person that has SSI.
Why not? Oh, because you're saying to not disqualify. But if you're on SSI, contributing $16,000 a year may be an issue in and of itself.
True, but I was still trying to figure out how you
Absolutely,
are on that.
for sure. I did want to mention as well that, when Angela was saying that when you're reaching out to professionals to help, because it's a very complex situation, every situation will be subjective. We don't at Gries custodian the ABLE accounts, but for example, if we got a call to look at an allocation, we used a 6% growth rate. If the S&P brings back an average of 10% over 10-year time horizon, especially with the volatile times right now in your ABLE accounts, if you wanted a second look or a second opinion, this is why we're here. There you go. Any other questions?
Yes.
It's going back to the MIABLE accounts, and are MIABLE accounts really for older special needs individuals? Sorry. Sorry, wow. Are MIABLE accounts mainly for older special needs individuals? Because I see a lot of the focus seem to be on older individuals with special needs. But what about still young, like my kids are fairly young yet. But obviously this is something that I really need to look at in the future and yada, yada, yada. At this time, my kids couldn't even qualify for SSI or anything like that, just simply because of our income alone.
Right.
So now we're sitting here like, so we have to wait until they're quote unquote on their own to start applying themselves. And now, so how do you navigate a system that's kind of, by the look of it, I can't enroll into MIABLE yet, from what I'm understanding.
I would have to look at your case specifically, but something that I would be more than willing to do is have a meeting, sit down, see how we can qualify potentially for a MIABLE account, even now, even to start now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you.
Go.
In the back?
The trustee of the trust, because I have a trustee that everything is no. If the person needs.
Oh, I can't hear you so well.
Just give 1 second till the mic gets there.
Okay, who oversees the trustee of the trust? Because I have an individual, everything is no. They never want to spend anything. And even with the stimulus money, it's like, okay, give me the stimulus money and put it in the trust. But they never spend a dime of the trust on the person.
Can I ask you who set up the trust? Was it an attorney? Was it
I don't know.
a special needs attorney?
I have no idea. I know the
Because
guardian.
that would be the first place that I would go.
Okay.
Is to contact an attorney in that regard. If the trustee is not following, your guidance, that's something that definitely should be taken care of as soon as possible.
Okay.
So let me ask you a question again. It's like Jared said, did you set up the trust with the assistance of your attorney?
No, I never set up the trust. Her guardian is the overseer of it, and it's like anything she needs is no. It's always no, no, no. So, but she quickly grabbed up that stimulus check and put it in the trust. It's like,
So what you probably would have to do is take a look what the verbiage in the trust says, first of all, to see what the criterias are. So again, this is probably a specialized situation. So first thing, like Jared said, find out who set up the trust and then actually read the language in the trust to see because the trustee may have certain requirements or responsibilities. I don't know the situation specifically, but that's the first thing you start with, is what's in the trust and who set up the trust.
okay.
I think we wrote in one of the slides there was a low asset management fee.
Yeah. I think it's next to the last slide.
It was where?
Keep going back.
Back?
Yeah, I think it's
Here.
26. There you go.
So you can see it's $45 annually, the maintenance fees. You can see all the fees right there. Does that answer your question? Perfect.
Yes.
Some of the money for vacation, like if she wanted to go visit the grandparents with a airplane
This
ticket?
is exactly what I
Or
was
is that
saying
little-
prior. which is that that would be a specific scenario that we could discuss, but they do leave these categories pretty vague, but you would have to work it out that it does make sense to fall into one of those QDs.
Any further questions?
Oh, we have one over there.
Right here?
Oh, we have two going at the same time?
Okay, we'll take her first and then come over to you.
When do you recommend you start that MIABLE account?
Well, I would recommend setting up a meeting and discussing whether or not you qualify and how we can get to that position that we can start as soon as possible, even with this small amount of $25 just to get the account open and running.
No, I mean in age and whether or not the child, this is a child, as the other lady, she's got children. These are young kids.
Before 26 years old was the age, before
All right,
26.
thank you.
And we have a question on this side?
Yeah, so we set up a 529, and it doesn't appear that the funds that we put in there for college we're gonna use. Can that convert over into my ABLE account?
Yes,
It can?
Yes.
And typically, your 529 account will have the rules to transfer over what can and cannot, but to Jared's point, typically the answer is yes. So just make sure you read what your 529.
Yeah, that would go to the taxability of the account. So the 529 would be tax deferred as well. So you may be able to continue that status by transferring it into a MIABLE account.
Okay. Yes.
I have a question. Our son is 20 years old, and he is just now
getting into trying for his first job.
Okay.
Okay. He has a bank account that anyway, and we're doing the direct deposit. Is this MIABLE account something that if he did, the first job didn't work out, but if we can get him into a workforce, could he do like a direct deposit into this?
I don't know the answer to that question. I don't know.
Okay.
It may be that there's one step.
Okay.
This is a colleague, Renee
Okay,
as well.
if we can even get him part-time into any job at this point.
Right.
He's going to MCTI in the fall for a job training, but right now he's like job shadowing to even.
Yeah, because if he has a job, he can contribute that too.
Right, but
Okay,
can the paycheck go directly into the?
Yeah, he can.
Okay.
You have to put limits in it, but it depends on how much money he has for himself. There's income limits to beneficiaries.
Okay.
Right,
So
agreed.
dollar amount, there's a dollar amount
I
they would
believe
limit
so.
to put into it?
No, the dollar amount that he owns himself, your son.
Okay, so because he does not get SSI, we have never signed him up for that. He's our only child. We've always supported him. He would not have to stop at the $2,000 mark? Is that a true statement?
I think, yeah, so with him working, he gets a job, you can still put that $16,000 into that account for him.
Okay, so he could.
And the additional 12, right? that's
Okay,
right.
so he could contribute as much as he wanted, because we've provided him, he just started driving. So we have provided a vehicle, he lives at home. He could provide, or he could put in as much as he wants, yes?
Up to the limits, correct.
Okay, so up to $16,000 per year.
Exactly, which is
Okay.
another 12,000 I put on the
Okay.
screen.
Okay, thank you for your help, I
For
appreciate
sure,
it.
for sure.
Thank you.
I have one.
Go for it.
Regarding SSI, you were mentioning earlier, my son will always be with us, and he does get SSI, but you had mentioned about charging rent in order to allow him to receive more benefits. Could you go over that real?
Well, up to, if he's already receiving the 2,000, there's nothing to
No,
improve.
it's not 2,000.
Okay, so then, yeah, if they're deducting because he's not claiming shelter,
Yes.
then set up, one way to get around that, so to speak, is to set up a structure where he's paying you rent from his bank account. It could be proven, and you submit that in, they would then reimburse you for the shelter portion of the SSI.
Okay, because I've got a special needs account for him. So he can
Exactly.
just- Okay. How do I find out about reasonable amounts, or how do I?
I can't hear you, I'm sorry.
How do we find out what the reasonable rental amount would be? I don't know.
I think it could be arbitrary.
Okay. Thank you.
No problem.
Just to answer the question here, I use $277.
Right.
At the time, that would maximize her, what SSI would send. Because that's how much they would deduct for her household.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further questions? Anything else we can answer to the best of our abilities? Okay. Yes,
Right.
in front.
Oh, do we have a mic?
Mic's on its way.
Yeah, my question is for parents who are disabled raising their own disabled children. If the parents are on Social Security income, how do we save for our children that are on SSI as well? So the family is all on SSI.
How do you save it for the children?
How do you, yeah, like how would we be able to save if we're all on SSI?
I think the question, if I'm understanding correctly, you're asking how can, being both the parent and child being disabled, how can you create savings into a savings vehicle?
Right.
Well, one is just, you got to have means, but I think that's probably more of an offline question.
Yeah.
So we can see what your personal situation is and go from there.
And a budgeting thing.
And a budgeting,
Right.
expense, and all of that. So that's more of an offline. So we'll be happy to talk offline about it. So it's one question right here to the left here, right here.
We work with a lot of lower income families, and you guys mentioned that your company works with higher income families. So who would you recommend that we make referrals to who are struggling financially and need help navigating all of these systems? I know I've got the websites to refer them to, but there's so many questions about each little requirement and eligibility. And so do you have recommendations for people who can help manage lower income families' finances?
Yeah, we can pull together a resource network to help you get the answers that you need. As a matter of fact, we're right outside this door, so if you want, after this session, you want to come over and we can get your information and we can start pooling a network of people that can help you. Again, just because we're a wealth management firm doesn't mean we're not trying to help each and every one that needs help in this situation. That's why we're here. So if we aren't able to do it here inside of this firm, we are still helping because we have a network of resources to get you to the right individuals.
Yeah, I was just going to add that, I'm here and Angelo's here. Although we do have a high net worth firm, we're here for a reason. We're here to help out in any regard. So if we're setting you up with somebody else, or even you can't find somebody in the interim and somebody needs help, please reach out.
Exactly. Anyone else? In the back there.
If the disabled person passes away, what happens to the funds?
I
I've heard that
didn't hear the
it
question.
goes back to the government.
Could you repeat that? We didn't hear the first part.
If you have a disabled child and they pass away, where does the money from the ABLE account go?
I think that it would then become a taxable event, but I would have to double check on that.
I've heard it goes back to the government, so that's been my hesitation.
I didn't hear what you said. I'm sorry.
I've heard just anecdotally that if the recipient passes away,
That it would become a taxable event?
No, that the government seizes the asset.
I don't think that's
No,
true.
you know what?
Let's get you
take
the
this-
right answer.
Exactly.
But I don't think that's the case, but let's get you the right answer. I'll come over as soon as we're done, and we'll start looking right
Yeah,
into it for
absolutely,
you.
absolutely.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for spending some time with us, and we hope this information was informative and valuable, and you got something out of it. Again, if you need any assistance, we're here. We're going to be here for the rest of the day. We're right outside at Gries Financial Partners. Come on over and talk to us, but hopefully this was helpful.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.